Well, now we're trying to catch you all out this week because we're here on a Friday. We've very, 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 very rarely done a Friday, have we, Stephen?
No, and not only have we changed the day, but it's the time. Because I think I just said to you before, Graham, I thought it was our usual noon and dialed in to find out you were in the middle of doing something else. So I had to quickly move things around.
Oh my goodness, I better shower and change and get ready because I'm meant to be there. But actually, no, you were fine. You were still there. Oh, it's just been told we're live on YouTube. Hi, YouTube people.
Hi, YouTube.
Anyone on Twitter, hello. Hope you're having a lovely Poets' Day today. Do you still call it that, Poets' Day?
No. Do you?
No. Oh, well, used to when I at the last place of work, they used to call it Poets' Day.
Right.
You know what it means, don't you?
Yeah. I just not something I've ever used or heard.
No. Now, listen, I can't actually decide. There's this conversation that's a little bit left over from the last live that I've just done. I'm obviously not going to eat it now, but I've got a sandwich here. So it's a smoked cheese sandwich with some twiglets. Do I put the twiglets in the smoked cheese sandwich or leave them on the side?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you could even forget the smoked fish and just go with a crisp sandwich.
No, smoked cheese.
Smoked cheese. You could leave the cheese out. You could even go with I think a crisp sandwich is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. Are you a twiglet fan though? Are you a Marmite person or not?
Bizarre, bit like tomatoes and tomato ketchup. I like twiglets, but I don't particularly like Marmite.
Yeah. Well, it is slightly different, isn't it? It is slightly different. Nobody else likes twiglets in our house. It's great at Christmas because everyone always buys us a big tub of those.
Like a cylinder, isn't it?
A cylinder of twiglets. And no one else wants to eat them. Shame.
Gutted.
Utterly shameful. Anyway, got a special guest coming on now.
Great.
You might recognise the name.
Oh, no, hang on a second. I actually genuinely don't know who it is.
I know you don't know who it is, but you might actually recognise the name. I've just got to take the branding off to squeeze another. Ooh, look at that! To squeeze another person in. So if I take that off and I bring him in, let's see who it is.
Hello.
Here he is.
You all right?
Yeah. How are you?
I thought I come from a dark place, but that looks pretty dark where you are today. What is it with us Coaths and dark spaces?
Yeah, I don't know. For those that haven't seen me on live before, I live in a basement, so everything is lit by film lights. There's one just here that's giving us all the.
Do you know what? I haven't shown you this yet, but I've bought one similar. Look.
Hey, look. Film lights are the way forwards for keeping your work lit.
And for heat.
It's nothing to do with the fact that electricity prices have gone absolutely through the roof today, and you are only turning on. You've only got one light on the go, as opposed to the normal sort of rack of lights, as it were.
We will talk about that in a minute, because surely to goodness, people are going to start moving outside to work, aren't they? Especially in the summer, if it's warm. I mean, at least you don't have to have lights on if you're outside. That makes sense.
The clocks have probably changed at the ideal time, haven't they? For the fact that actually there's generally just a lot more light around at the moment, isn't there? But yeah, I mean, it's just they're talking about rationing gas, aren't they, in Germany and Austria or something? It's like
rationing gas.
Yeah,
and yet, a little bit of an aside, but I don't know whether you saw Ben Fogel's program this week. He does that. Ben Fogel Out in the Wild or whatever, where he goes to see people that live out in the wild, and this series is a return to the wild. So he's recapping on people that he's been to see before, and this week he went back to see this family, and it was a couple of vets that shunned the industry, if it were, and got in a bit of trouble in the press. Or certainly the guy did many moons ago, and then they've gone out into a piece of countryside in this country to escape from everybody and find a really ecological way of living. Now, this guy is brilliant at inventing things. One of the things he's invented, get this, is a way of using rotten mass to produce methane and use it with his cooker. They don't pay for gas at all. They literally all of the waste product. And do you know what he based it on? Because he obviously, being a vet, biology, he based it on the idea of a cow's stomach.
Okay.
Right? So he basically made out of a big unit and stuff. He made a cow's stomach, and he put cow manure into it, and he worked out that what all of the bacteria and everything would do, and all you do is you feed it with the household waste, and then he found a way of extracting off the methane, pushing it back through the system and straight into the cooker, and they cook on that.
Wow.
And Ben was going, yeah, well, why don't we all have one of those? Imagine if we just all had our own gas supply from waste food, which is just going to go to,
But hang on, would we not need to then waste a whole load of food to produce gas?
No, it's just the leftover.
Just the leftovers.
Just the leftovers that you and I put in a brown bin at the moment and carry to the end of the street to have taken away once a week. Who goodness knows where it goes, right? He's utilizing that to make gas that he then cooks on. Genius. Absolutely genius.
Mm.
And he's also working on, at the moment, this was the thing that he left Ben with, he's also working on a way of, again, some kind of rotten mass material, actually heating his water. So clever. He puts it into this system. It creates heat. It heats up water and it pipes through, and it creates his hot water for him. So he doesn't have, it's brilliant. They're completely off grid.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is impressive. I just think, someone needs to come up with some commercial way of actually sorting this all out.
Mm.
It makes you think that half the problem is people making money, doesn't it? Because clearly there are alternative ways of doing it. Let's get revolutionary, Addy. What are we gonna do?
Let's get revolutionary. I mean, to be fair, you're not wrong on the idea that the main reason it's probably not commercially viable is because of gas companies and people that would not want that to happen. That is probably the number one reason why it isn't a thing that's widely distributed.
Yeah.
And I said to you a few weeks ago, Graham, there has to be a load of tricks of the trade that would help people reduce their use of electricity. That for some reason, I mean, this is one of the things I've not understood with all of this. There must be a whole load of things that you can do. But so despite the pricing going up, why is no one telling us all the, and I know the obvious things like standby and all those sort of stuff, but rather than people being concerned, how do you find the extra money? Actually, how do you use less?
Yeah. Well, that's the stupid thing, isn't it? The great advice that we're being told at the moment is, the best way of not using, this is literally it. The best way of not using electricity is to not use electricity.
Yeah, brilliant.
Just turn off your lights. That'll help.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it was a bit like Matt Lucas made a similar joke on Celebrity Bake Off last night. One of the celebrities said, "Oh yeah, I make quite a good. I've never baked before, but I make a great spaghetti bolognese." And Matt Lucas turned around and said, "You make a great spaghetti bolognese, don't you?" He said, "No, make a great spaghetti bolognese." I mean, it literally is that, isn't it? It really is. It's that kind of nonsensical advice. Mm. Yeah. How do you save electricity? Don't use any electricity. Brilliant.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Thanks for that. Mm. Yeah.
You've really saved me.
Yeah. Anyway, Addy's here to tell us about what he's up to at the moment.
We're using a load of electricity. That's all we're doing.
So he Needs money because he's using electricity.
I'm trying to assemble the biggest wall of lights possible for no reason whatsoever. No, we're doing something a little bit more important than wasting electricity, though we are using quite a lot of gas in the process. We are making a film. It's a short documentary that follows an AFAB drag queen, which is an assigned female at birth drag queen. So someone that's a woman that does drag, which is not something many people think of when they think of drag. It's not often talked about in mainstream media, and we go into that a little bit in the documentary. It's slightly critical of some of mainstream representation of drag. So yeah, it's an important short documentary that we're currently in the process of making. We're also raising money so that we can actually make the thing, because we're filming it in Brighton. Which to be fair, if you're making a drag film and you don't go to Brighton, you've basically missed the point of making a drag film at that point. So we're in Brighton, but we're all Cheltenham-based film students. This is our graduation film, so it's a fair trek, and a lot of the budget has gone towards us being able to stay in Brighton and spend time with the wonderful drag community there. So yeah, that's the nuts and bolts of what's happening. But I also think if you guys have got questions about it, I'd love to shoot answers back at you.
There's so many questions. I mean, speaking about drag, I mean, you know how these things are just sort of coincidental, and I'm slightly going off tangent here. But last night I was watching the Shanemoore memorial documentary or live stream from where they'd done a big thing at the MCG, and bizarrely it recapped the interview with Barry Humphries.
Oh wow!
Who was dressed as...
But you know, I did wonder where that was going from there. I did wonder what you were saying. There was something about Shanemoore that I didn't realise.
Yeah, funny enough. But it was the interview then with obviously did when it was with Barry Humphries, and that was the only link that I've got, to be quite honest, is that having not been thinking of the drag sort of whole scene, it was like, hang on, there was that thing the other night.
Is Barry Humphries a massive cricket fan then?
He's Australian, so he's got to be, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a massive stereotypical brush I've just painted. Everyone in Australia loves cricket, but you'd probably think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I can't see them not liking cricket.
No.
Why the subject matter? Why did you pick the subject matter in the first place?
So basically, as like a documentary director, my main aim has always been to platform people that don't have a platform, or like give voices to people that don't have access to their voice being in mainstream media a lot. And then the person that this documentary is about, their name's Jasmine. They're like really bubbly and fun. They're someone that I used to do theatre with back in the day when I used to do theatre. They've since started doing drag. They are making their way up the ladder in terms of career path in drag, and it's what they'd like to do full time once they graduate. They're also a student. So they just I saw their story and I was talking to them about it. But way before I knew this was going to be a documentary, I was just talking about them as friends, and it was bonkers. It's crazy. And I was like, there's so much madness. The film is called Overwhelmingly Gay and Chaotic, and it's just, that sums up the whole thing perfectly. It's fun. There's a little bit of dark stuff, but it's mostly a celebration about this amazing individual in this community. Lots of pink, lots of purples, lots of bright lights, lots of fun, lots of chaos. We've been editing together the first bit of footage that we've got, and there's lots of stuff being dropped and people running around like crazy trying to get ready last minute. It's lots of exciting stuff that we've had a lot of fun filming so far. Yeah,
it's one of those things when people talk about a career in drag. I mean, that's I'm sure there's some people. I mean, I might be making assumptions, but there might be some people that watch this and will go, "Can you have a career in drag?"
Yeah, you for sure can. Drag has become, especially in the last 10 years, drag has become a massive industry.
Yeah.
It's moved out from being something that's more closeted, like or not something you encounter very often, to being, I mean, it's got mainstream representation. You have RuPaul's Drag Race, which is
exactly
there's about 6 or 7 RuPaul Drag Race shows now in terms of various places you can watch it. So yeah, it's moved out of being a small thing into to a big thing. I mean, we've been talking to various people that have got careers in drag at the moment. But yeah, part of what we're doing is taking a look at RuPaul, because they've said some problematic things in their past, and we're talking about whether there should be just like one voice in mainstream media that represents drag, or whether there should be a wider net cast, and whether people should maybe stop looking to just RuPaul when they're thinking about making drag related things.
So how do you make and I'm thinking purely from a financial perspective here, how do you make a career out of it? What's the where does it generate income? What are this community? What's the community in Brighton you're referencing? What do they do to generate an income?
You play shows. So drag shows, I think, are one of the main ways that people make money. I mean, you have drag influencers as well, people that have massive online followings that they make money off of that. But yeah, that's the main things are performing, showcasing talent. There's so many events and like drag clubs that people don't realize exist, but like drag clubs exist all over the place. Especially, we've been in Brighton. There's at least 3 or 4 that we've stumbled across that we didn't realize were drag clubs until it was pointed out to us that that's what it was. So yeah, venues hire them to do stuff. Shows will pay them to come and be in them. I mean, we've had we've learned about some drag queens that are actually like employed full time as like regular like servers or workers at places, and they do shows on a regular basis. So yeah, it's a growing sector of theatre, if you like. It's sort of it's becoming less about just gender expression, and it's also like an art form now as well, where you can do it as a form of art.
I was going to ask that actually. Who's coming or who's going to drag shows?
I mean, it's hard to define who goes to a drag show, because we've seen all sorts so far, and just are like we've only done a few trips. We've only been to Brighton once, but we've gone to a few locations. We've seen all sorts. Obviously, the LGBTQ plus community really, really active in terms of being at drag shows and enjoying LGBTQ friendly venues, which also tend to be drag venues. But also, we've seen men on stag do's go to drag shows, you know. And we've seen women on hen do's go to drag shows as well, not to limit anyone. And we've just seen just normal people turning up to have a good time. We tend to find loads of actually younger women like going to drag venues because they don't feel like they're going to get as harassed as much by men when they go out, and they feel like they're going to have a nicer night.
Yeah. Because whilst you were talking about that, and the reason I asked that question is because I was just thinking in terms of representation in sort of general media, but not necessarily from an entertainment point of view, but in terms of maybe things like marketing, etc. You know, Stephen, would we ever see someone in drag actually advertising ergonomic products, for example?
Well, why not?
Yeah, well, exactly. Why not?
I think it would be one of the.
What I'm saying is, it doesn't happen, does it?
It doesn't happen, and I think it's still probably reflective of the fact that that first organisation to sort of put themselves out there, as it were. Someone prepared to put their hand up and go, we're going to do it first. There's still that, I guess, the commercial, there's still probably those concerns from a commercial organization, isn't there, about doing something that's a little bit outside of mainstream, and then maybe there's a reluctance to do it. And once it's done, it'll just happen again and again, but it's that who's prepared to take that first step and go, we're going to do it.
I mean, the ergonomic community is pretty bad at that in a way, in that I think traditionally it's always it has aimed itself at sort of the white man in a suit, or someone in business attire, etc. It hasn't really managed to bust out even into sort of like, oh, let's show someone necessarily in a t-shirt and shorts or whatever half the time, and yet even more so, not saying that it really hasn't sort of shown itself as being inclusive, let's say, in terms of who models it. But there is an opportunity there, I think.
I think it's the same in a lot of industries where we're seeing drag and just in general diversity creep into a lot of things now. I mean, just setting drag aside for a minute, it's nice to see people of color, LGBT performers, or just celebrities in general starting to be brought to more prominence in the last 5-10 years, and they're coming to more prominence because they bring a large demographic with them. They bring an ever increasing market with them, and that seems to be the case at the moment, as these people are growing followers exponentially faster than people that aren't in this sector, because it's something that is growing and growing and growing.
And going back to Stephen's point, you wonder where's the tipping point in all of that. You wonder at which point people actually need to stop going, do you know what, we are going to continue with this stereotypical image of our client and putting that forward in front of people, because we're so scared of losing that kind of client, to the point where they actually start losing that client, because that client wants to see the diversity and wants to see the inclusion in the marketing and the material and everything else.
Well, that's what we found really funny, talking to especially some of the AFAB and female queens, was that that's almost what's happening with RuPaul at the moment, where they're starting to kind of lose a little bit of support from the actual drag community, because they're so mainstream, they echo what people would like to see, that it's like the actual community itself, parts of it is starting to become unhappy with how refined and safe it is, because it's not representational with them anymore. It's becoming its own thing.
And you see that a lot of the time, don't you, where something comes through that's something different, and to carry on being involved, they then change from being that different thing that was the attraction to then mainstream, and then the turn off is the fact that they're just mainstream and they could be anyone. And again, it's the sort of feeling within that community then sort of goes, well, hang on a second, you've sort of sold out, probably, I mean, could be the phrase to use. Have they sold out to keep that popularity?
How many times have you seen that with a band or musician or whatever, where they had an agenda, they had something different about them, they had they had something to say, and then they get the big contract and they're put here, there, and everywhere, and suddenly they're just saying what the industry wants them to say in order to be in the right place at the right time. But it's they actually end up losing their credibility.
I think a lot of the time as well, it's when people stop being just when they lose that edge of being, oh, I'm one person with a camera and a small crew, and we're all in the community, to being large. I'm a large person with a whole team with me, and 6 producers who all make sure everything I say is okay before I say stuff and everything. As soon as you start getting to that level where there's so much money involved that you've got loads of cooks in the kitchen, you almost get the same processed stuff, no matter how many people you have.
It's something you're probably more of an expert on than me, Addy. But Graham you mentioned music. I'm thinking of films here, and the one that sort of springs to mind in my mind would be someone like Tarantino. Is when and this is not I enjoy his films, and it's certainly not my area of expertise. But you started off with edgy stuff like Reservoir Dogs, and as you then look through the films that then were produced, they sort of lost their edginess and just became something that appealed to getting bums on seats in cinemas. Would that be a good example, or is it?
Tarantino's a really interesting one because I think maybe the change we see in Tarantino, who has notoriously always been quite thick-skulled in terms of listening to advice from people, is that Tarantino has just kind of, his style seems to have just matured with age as he's become older. His stories seem to have matured, where you can definitely see his older work in his new work, but it's like there's more human story in it as well. But you can definitely see it in if we look at like Joss Whedon, who did started with Buffy the Vampire Slayer ages ago and did Justice League before Zack Snyder finished Justice League, and Justice League turned into the original cut that was released, just like a meaningless blob of like corporate creativity, if you like. And the original Buffy show is very, very interesting and like uses lots of complex themes of like human problems, but put in metaphysical natures. It's very, very interesting to see someone's style and at what point in their career. I think it happens to most people at some point, is you either lose your like unique thing completely, or you get called an auteur, and then you're like someone that's very like, I do things my way.
Yeah,
no one can tell me what to do.
Ben's watching and asked this question: do you think there's a link between how inclusive the venues are and how vulnerable the performers make themselves?
Absolutely, for sure. And also there's a link between this is a link that not a lot of people think about, but there's a link between not only how vulnerable performers want to make themselves because of the venues, but also the like mainstream image that is projected of drag. If that doesn't include your style of drag, that can really make you feel very self-conscious about whether your drag is valid and whether your like art form is valid, or whether you get a bit of like imposter syndrome. And for sure, we've been talking to people who have felt like they like held themselves back from starting drag for years because they didn't feel like they were fully part of that community, or they were able to do it because they didn't know from the mainstream representation that they could, and that was a thing. So yeah, for a really interesting question. Yeah, for sure. We saw some crazy stuff at Club Revenge. Give a shout out to Club Revenge in Brighton. They've been very helpful to us. And they're like one of the #1 drag venues in Brighton. If you ever get a chance, great night out. And the stuff that we saw there was crazy compared to what you see on like mainstream drag TV shows. Absolutely wild. But yeah.
And have you had any sort of initial feedback from the community about how this documentary is going to be sort of received? Have they got a thought as to what they want you to portray? Is there something that we don't want you to do this, or just crack on with it?
So obviously, I'm not a woman in drag, so we've been led by the people we've met and telling their stories. So my input as a director is to make sure that we get a clear narrative, and that it's like it all cuts together nicely, and that we're telling people's story in a truthful way. And they are giving us the stories, and the community is one that's really open. And what we found actually is a lot of people are really eager to see this sort of thing represented, and they're really there's a big thought within the community basically that this will be becoming mainstream hopefully within the next few years, and that this is a really important film at this particular moment, because it's at the cusp of that happening, and we're hoping just to be part of the push over the edge to
when you say this will become mainstream, what, drag in general or
female drag, and like more diverse drag in general. But yeah,
you've got clients in Brighton, haven't you, Steve?
I was wondering where that question was going there, to be honest. So
yes, no, I didn't say you've got things in your closet. We know that.
No. yes. There are a number of, in fact, actually across that whole sort of south coast, there is quite a large sort of ergonomic community down there. So yeah,
and some of them are involved in entertainment themselves, aren't they? I'm aware of.
Hang on.
You might have to be more specific.
Come on.
Well, Dave Blood likes to do his comedy shows down there.
Yes, he does. Yes.
Yeah, raising money. So, yeah, I wonder whether. I mean, I think Dave would be completely. I'm not putting this. Stephen's not saying this. I'm saying this. I'm sure Dave. Yeah. I'm sure Dave would be up for getting someone in drag doing some ergonomic promotion. I'm sure he would. He's totally his bag.
Hey, look. The thing is, they are like, from what we've experienced, they are like one of the best communities. If you want someone to come in and like make something funny that takes the piss out of what is the norm. If the norm for ages has been a white guy in a suit promoting products, then you for sure can get like a fab queen to come in and do a look that is like takes the complete piss out of this stereotype and like rips it apart in a very funny way.
Well, yeah, I kind of know that from myself because many moons ago, before you were born,
you talking to me or to Addy?
To Addy.
Okay.
I worked with a drag community on a radio station, and they had a dance music show called Boogie Bass and Soulfish. There's a great name. And
sounds like a firm of solicitors, doesn't it?
But we also did some radio comedy together, and they were just absolutely fantastic at coming up with these over the top characterizations of people, and you know, but that actually, from a marketing point of view, that can be really powerful because they can really kind of get into that, you know, caricature, which know, because that's what it is. I mean, drag is that in a sense, isn't it? It's a caricature of, it's a larger than life version of, you know.
That's kind of what we're getting at in the documentary, is that drag actually, I mean, not to counterpoint what you say, but drag is actually whatever you want it to be. In terms of that's the general consensus from the community, is like drag is actually too big to be labeled as one thing, like, and it's so diverse that you would have to present so many shows to like actually show the whole diversity of drag. So it's really individual, because a lot of the time it is just based on whatever the individual drag queen is trying to criticize or like make a mockery of. That tends to be what comes out. So yeah, whilst you're right that a lot of drag is that, it's so diverse that it's very hard to pinpoint exactly what is drag.
Yeah, Ben, again, really interesting that people feel safe from harassment in these venues. What can other venues learn from them?
Was there anything I was going to say, is there anything you saw when in these venues that really sort of, I didn't expect to see that, or, you know, that's an interesting idea. Any sort of, when you went into the venue, what really stuck out, Addy?
Tell you what, you didn't have people, you know that people normally, when you go to like a club or like a bar, it's always like clumps of people. We didn't really see that in the drag venue. Everyone sort of interacted with each other in a very fluid way. Like, we came with a group of 6 drag queens, and they went into club and almost they like got a drink together and then immediately almost dispersed into.
Is it almost more like family?
Yeah. Everyone seemed to even if they didn't know people there, was seeming to just like I mean, bless them. We went with someone who didn't realize we were going to turn up with a film crew before we got there, and they hadn't seen drag before. They were there with their friend who's a drag queen, so they hadn't seen drag. They were there whilst we were getting ready. They hadn't seen a film crew before, and they hadn't been to this drag club before. And they went with their friend and us to this club, and the club was chaotic as all heck. And they were sticking to their friend for like 5 minutes, which is what you would expect. And then they just went off and met new people, and they seemed happy, and it was like, you know, it just had the vibe of being a safe space where everyone was interacting and just I think that's a really important dynamic, which I think a lot of cultures fail to manage to achieve. My favorite bands are the ones where if I go to one of their gigs, it's like that. Yeah.
And it's actually part of, you know, it's part of what makes the experience so good. And it's hard for people to understand that until they walk into that situation. But I don't know, Addy's going to hate me mentioning Marillion, but whenever you go to a Marillion gig,
hang on, before you carry on, is it the fact that he doesn't like them, or he's sick of you banging on about them?
Probably that. Yeah. But the thing is, it is like family, and unlike some other gigs where you go to, where you go with, as you say, you go with your group of friends, and then that's it. There's a total thing in a Marillion gig backstage beforehand. People will just go and talk to each other, and just, you know, because it's almost like it is family. And there's not that kind of clumping. And what
creates that then? Why does that happen, Graham?
Because that is created by the band. The band create that.
I will say part of it was the performers as well for the drag venue, because I mean, I was amazed at one point because I'd just been chatting to this person for about 20 minutes, and then Jazz, our subject, comes up to me and goes, like they're like pretty big in the drag community, like they're a pretty big name around here actually. And it was like, it took me a second to realize that half the people were like just starting out. Like, we had 2 people there that it was their first drag show they'd ever done, and half of them were like really well established, and you could not tell from how they were acting with people who was
correct. It was where ego gets left at the side. And I think that's the important thing. You know, when you get a set of performers or a band or whatever, and they genuinely feel part of a family as well, and they respect the fact that they would not be there unless the people that are surrounding them are supporting them. That changes the dynamic. It's not, I'm the performer, you've come to see me, I'm on my you know, almighty horse up here, and it's a real genuine respect and love all round. And I think that's what changes it. I think
that reflects across all sorts of things. I think if you can take that into music, I think you can take that into sport as well, can't you? And going along and supporting a team or whatever. I think when you've got that connection between if you call the sports team the performer and the crowd, or the audience, if you've got that connection, that's what creates that open situation. But when you don't have it, it's not quite them and us, but it is that sort of way, isn't it? That there's sort of a bit of an edge to it all, isn't there?
And I'm going to twist it back round to ergonomics again.
Oh no! Right.
But I actually that is the subject matter that I talked to the South African Ergonomic Society about last year when I was one of the main speakers at their event. Again, the ergonomics industry has been too prone to that. It's been too prone to, telling people off from the top, So ergonomists are like, don't do this, don't do that. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing this. You've got to be doing it this way, etc. Rather than actually trying to put themselves in the position of the people and try and understand. I've even seen it from assessors. I've seen it where assessors have gone around and gone, no, you shouldn't do it that way.
Wagging their finger.
And wagging their finger. And actually, I've been in after other assessors sometimes. And I can remember one of the ones that really sticks out. This one guy that sat there in his chair and he was like, you're going to tell me I can't sit like this. Right. That was the first thing he said to me, and he had his, and rather than say, no, you can't, that's not good for you, I said, shall we talk about why you sit like that? Try to understand it from his point of view. You tell me why it is. And he said, well, I sit like this because this is more comfortable on my back, etc. And once we started to talk about it, and I go, yeah, actually, that is better for your back like that. But what about your monitor? What about that position? And isn't that actually hurting your neck a little bit? And he said, yeah, that does hurt my neck a little bit. Okay, so maybe can we see what we can do to try and allow you to sit like that? And, if you try and understand where people are, then you break down those barriers. But it's so there, a little bit of a lesson for the ergonomics community as well.
I'd love to throw this gauntlet out to anyone in the ergonomics community. We in the film industry do not have great ergonomics in terms of our equipment.
There we go.
Some of it is so heavy. I'll give you an example, and this is a strenuous link, but a link to
we like strenuous. Yeah. We like tenuously strenuous links on here.
A link to Graham's comment about South African Ergonomics Society Committee.
Yeah.
One of the two. Our cinematographer is also South African. I'm actually the only English member of our crew. Everyone else comes from some various faraway land. And she has gotten back this week from filming last week, has not stopped complaining about her back all week because of basically we have a camera that weighs, and it's a pretty light camera considering what it does. So for the industry, this is lighter than normal. We've got a camera that weighs 23.4 kg or something without anything else added on. So when you add stuff on, it can easily go 25 and up kg.
Well, you think about it from a HSE perspective, putting the ergonomics to one side. If you think a box, if you're sort of working in a warehouse, or if you're packing a box of equipment, there's like a 25 kilo max, isn't it? I think on something like that. So you're already you're talking about lifting a box. You're already talking about that being carried before the add-ons for a sustained period of time. No.
And this goes on your one shoulder, whichever your dominant shoulder is, and you don't operate on both shoulders. You don't alternate. You only operate on your dominant shoulder. It will have one or two hand like bars for you to grip on. So that like sits here and the camera's up here, and then you have to like lean your neck to one side to look through the eyepiece to film. Sometimes if we need the screen out, the screen will fold out and you have to push your head back like that to look at the screen. Which, to be fair, people try and design cameras ergonomically, I think, but I don't think it's done amazingly most of the time. And so this one shoulder piece, which is about this long and has a piece of foam about that thick with a general curve on it, sits on your shoulder, and we can be filming on a narrative set that's not a documentary, they will film, and normally they will use a tripod for some of it, so this is a generalization, but they will be filming like three-minute takes, which means that has to sit there and be completely still for 3 minutes and move when you need it to without bumping around. And they work 12-hour days at least, with that on your shoulder for most of that, and it only comes off when you get a break. It's craziness. We need some sort of system for supporting the camera that maybe spreads the weight across both shoulders, or does some, because there's completely unused shoulder here that maybe you could make some sort of system that loops around.
Well, there is a lot of people in more manual jobs as well, working. I've seen quite a lot on LinkedIn lately, working in the sector on ectoskeletons or ecoskeletons as well. Maybe something of that might pop up.
We do have them in the film industry. This is why I'm laying out the gauntlet here. You can charge whatever the I won't swear. Whatever the hell you would like. Charge whatever the hell you like in the film industry. There are so few competitors that the cheapest like competitor to you, if you made an exoskeleton that is just a vest, some sort of design that would take the weight of a camera, would be like probably $1,000. So if you could charge less than $1,000, you would be able to sell that, and legitimately you'd be the cheapest option on the market, because
film to go back with.
Film equipment is made by maybe a maximum of 10 companies, most of which also make cameras. So they really gatekeep, the industry, and in terms of prices, that's why they're so high.
Imagine that.
I mean, it's
so you're saying Backer could come out with one of those tomorrow, 899, and they just dominate the market. Fantastic.
Happy days.
For sure. If you basically, I'll even let you in on how to, because I've been watching it myself. I'll even let you know how to dominate the film industry from getting your equipment in if you want. That's
free. What's called an in. This is an in.
Yeah. So this is how
great.
Blackmagic are the newest company in the film space in terms of the new big one, and they've managed to get in what I think is the most effective way I've ever seen, which is they just give discounted rates and like free equipment to go with their software to universities, and then when the film students all come out of universities, that is all they know how to use.
Yeah.
And then the people in the industry have to buy Blackmagic stuff because it's what people know how to use. It's happening all over in loads of different countries. Blackmagic have given away. They've got this thing at the moment where you can get a free like mixing board for their software, which is for color grading and editing. If you're a university, you can just have one of their big expensive boards sent to you for free. That's so that people in the editing world will only know how to edit with their board. And then when you leave, you have to buy one. Like that one unit they've shipped, that'll result in what, if you've got a class,
obviously like other makes are available, of course.
Actually, unless it's third party, no other company.
No other makes are available. So that literally, literally is
a monopoly.
Blackmagic are, because they own the software as well, and they don't let people make first party things that are compatible.
Not saying it's bad though. Not saying it's bad. It's good. It's good kit.
Blackmagic is amazing because before they came along, they basically like 2/3 of what everything else costs were lopped off the price. Right. So all Blackmagic kit is 1/3 of the price of every other piece of kit, and it's still really high.
But you see, with my sales hat on, I don't like the sound of that. All I'm thinking is, did you have to take 66% off? Why did they feel they needed to come down that far?
To get into the industry, because it's really like.
So they couldn't have. So that was the gap they needed to make to really create interest, was to show such a significant reduction.
When you're talking about cameras, yeah. for getting cameras in hands for sure, because
Okay.
otherwise you're talking about, I mean, the cinematographers aren't the people that are booting the bill for the cameras. Normally it's the production studios. If you're going to a production studio and going, this film that you've spent, I don't know, 6 million to set up, I'd like to buy a camera that's 20 grand cheaper. You know, they're not going to waste the possibility of £6 million worth of stuff going bad for 20 grand. But I can now get a Blackmagic camera that is like 8 grand. I mean, that will do the same thing that if not quite as well, but almost, unless you're trained, unnoticeably as well,
right,
as the camera that we've got at university that costs 68 grand or something. So
whoa,
that's an old. That is a model from 2014.
£68,000. Wow.
It's a cheap version of that camera as well.
Flipping heck.
There are cameras that cost £500,000. You know, once you've gone all in on the equipment to support it as well, you're looking at a lot of money.
Where most of these cameras made, Addy, just out of interest, are these UK products or
I'm knocking
European?
them up in my back garden. What are you on about?
So one of the biggest camera manufacturers in terms of cinema cameras is Arri, and they are based in the UK. And if you were going to buy a really high-end camera in the UK, you would buy an Arri because their support is incredible. Like we've like the big £68,000 camera at uni is an Arri. It's a slightly older one, but it's an Arri. And loads of like films you go and see at the cinema and shot on them as well. But we literally, on our camera, we had a cable internally break and it stopped the camera from working, and the uni technicians phoned Arri about it, and they sent someone out within 4 hours with a kit, and they fixed it. And it was like, we lost maybe half a day of shooting. So Arri will really look after people in terms of fixing stuff if you're UK based.
Yeah.
But Marvel have just started using Arri cameras for some of their stuff, so that's cool.
Goodness
but yeah,
me.
that's the only UK one that I can think of.
So this brings us back round to money. All this stuff costs an awful lot of money. You're trying to raise money for this.
We are trying to raise money to make this film. It's really, really important.
What's on offer? I mean, it's a Kickstarter scheme. What's on offer if people? I've put some money in the pot, so I know I'm getting my name on a poster. What's on offer for people if they want to put some money into this film?
All right, let me talk you through it. So you give us.
He's done this before, hasn't he?
You give us £5. That's like nothing, really. That's like, what's that? A drop in the ocean? You'd buy lunch with a £5, wouldn't you? You get the behind the scenes photos of what we've been up to. You get to see the whole process. You give us £10. That's slightly more. You get all the behind the scenes videos as well. You get to see all the lovely, lovely stuff. Then we jump up to £25. Now that's where you really want to be. That's where the party starts, because at that point you start. That's where the party starts, because that's where you start to get your name in the credits of the film. Which is who wouldn't want their names in the credits of the film as a thank you. You also get a digital poster that's signed by the whole crew and the subject. And then if you jump up to £50, we'll start to get a bit more personal for you. So you'll actually get personalised thank you videos from the crew, as well as the cast of the documentary, and everyone involved will all.
Can I just point out, all of that is really good material for social media?
Yeah. I did forget to mention this. If you £50 is also the point where we start. We can make posts on social media about you donating if you want. If you call that into, call that in, you message us. We're like, yeah, that's cool. We can do that. We can access a list of who's donated, so we can help sort that out. Then at £100, you actually get physical stuff. So you get like a physical poster. that's signed by the whole crew, and we're only accepting 20 people at £100. So
yeah, I haven't worked out where I'm going to put the poster yet, but yeah,
there's only going to be 20 of these posters in the world at any point. So you'll have this exclusively. Yeah, and you also get access to photos of the whole crew in drag, which is pretty neat because it's people. Some of them don't want to be in drag, but have agreed to do it for the cause. So that's nice of them. So you can see us all in drag, and then from that point on, the only tier we've got is like £2,000, which is the whole budget of the film. If you give us £2,000, we're going to give you an executive producer credit. So if you've ever wanted to be an executive producer, we'll give you a credit for that. You don't have to do any work. You just have to give us the money. We'll say that you did loads of work. We don't mind. And we're also offering anyone that gives us £2,000 a opportunity to come to Brighton with the whole crew and the cast. You can meet Tayris, who is the owner of Club Revenge. You can have a whole drag show, whole drag night with us.
Wow.
Take you out. It's all groovy. If you want a whole experience, that's the one to go for. But yeah, if there's anything in between 100 and 100 and 2,000 isn't on Kickstarter, but if like businesses wanted to come in, we're happy to put like corporate logos at the end. I haven't spoken about this yet, but the whole crew is it's like an award-winning crew or have history at festivals. There's like a high probability this will end up at festivals in quite a big way. So just me as a director, I've had films at been a finalist at Sappho Film Festival, which is the largest LGBT festival in Europe. I've been a finalist at Nahimi, which is the like higher education awards for films. What else have I done? I've been to RTS, which is Royal Television Screen Awards, and then a whole plethora of like smaller festivals, documentaries I've gone to before that I've directed. Our producer has just finished working on a film that's just won an RTS award. Our cinematographer also has documentaries that have done really well. They've gone to RTS, they've gone to Encounters, they've gone to I don't know if many other film festival names will spark viewership back home, but they've gone to several festivals. And then our editor and our sound designer have also come from festival backgrounds to work on this film. So it's a whole talented group of people that are, there's a high probability that we're lightning will strike twice and we'll end up at more festivals. So if you want to see your company logo right at the end of festivals, and I've been there, they will play the whole thing. They will let your logo scroll past for a whole... They don't stop it. So I've sat through some credits that are really long. They will just let it keep rolling up as fast as we want.
Yeah. I actually sponsored... I sponsored a film years ago called One More Kiss, which was a English film about someone dying of cancer, and ended up going to the screening in Leicester Square, the red carpet screening in Leicester Square. It was great. It was a great experience.
Yeah, there will be. This will be screened in various places, so there will be screenings for like high level investors to come to if they want.
So there you go. If you fancy getting yourself into a film, even be it your name, and actually maybe generating some quite interesting material as well for social media, there's an opportunity there. They are. That's probably it.
We can even make your personalized thank you video. We can make a thank you to a company, a thank you to something for supporting, that can go slap bang on your social media like that.
There you go.
And then you've got it.
There you go. Well, thanks for coming, talking to us all about it today. It's a really different subject for us.
But
sure.
we crowbarred some ergonomics in, so that's
we
all that counts.
we
That's all
more
that
than
matters, hey?
crowbarred some ergonomics in. Actually, I mean, the thanks actually for talking about the whole film industry piece. That's really interesting. I've also been speaking to an ergonomist this week about another industry we don't talk about a lot, and maybe we'll talk about that another week, which is dentistry. Which is an interesting one. But you know, ergonomics isn't just about someone sat at a desk in an office. You know, it is relevant to all kinds of industry, and yet all of these industries need solutions.
For sure. You'd be surprised how many filmmakers I talk to on a daily basis that struggle with just the equipment that we're...
Yeah. And actually, some of the independent ergonomists that we know out there do work across different industries, because it's, you know, so it's this is probably one that might get picked up by some of the people that we know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be good. If anyone's got a great idea how to help, you know,
if anyone wants to talk to me about how to fix filmmakers' backs, I've
got a simple idea, which is I was thinking, if you just put a frame continuing out from the camera and just hang your Asda shopping on it at the other end, that might balance you out a bit, mightn't it?
We need something that looks a bit more professional.
Do you know who I would speak to? There's a guy I'm connected to on LinkedIn called Harold Floyd, who works for Elite.
Not Harold Lloyd.
No, Harold Floyd. Yeah. He's a guy, ex-army guy, now runs his own business, and it's all focused. He does some, actually a good one for you to link to connect with, Addy, because he does a lot of videos on LinkedIn of actually what he does and his training that he does, but it's all around manual handling training and ergonomic training. So the guy's called Harold Floyd. He came to one of our very first events, and I've kept in touch with him. But he might be someone worth connecting. Harold Floyd from Elite.
For sure.
Let's have a quick look. Elite Safety Force. No, Elite Force Safety. Connect with him. He's a really good guy.
That's the thing I've been finding, is that it's like there's actually solutions in place in the industry, but they are like, and we do get training on how to handle stuff.
Yeah.
It's not to fault anything else, but until you get to that high level in the industry where you can afford every bit of kit, that is not accessible to anyone until you've got millions of pounds of budget and you can move everything very easily. At which point, of course it becomes, when you've got millions of pounds, of course it becomes easy to move stuff, right?
I've heard this across so many industries over the years. I knew a pro bass player who had to completely relearn how to play bass because he was getting carpal tunnel.
Wow.
You know, you think about, I mean, I don't know if you've ever held a proper bass guitar, but they weigh a ton, you know, and if you're holding it like this and
for
day
sure
in, day out, you know, you've got to learn to play it right, you know, and you might develop a technique that doesn't quite work right. I think we talked once about Nick Faldo, did we not? The golfer.
Possibly.
Nick
He
Faldo,
totally remodeled his swing.
He had to completely and he had to do it actually out of injury. You know, because he was just finding that the way that he was hitting the ball was just actually causing him injury. So he had to completely learn how to play golf again.
Yeah. And he would be from your neck of the woods, wouldn't he, Graham? He was Welling Garden City, wasn't he? That's your old stomping ground, isn't it?
No, Bedfordshire.
Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire, same thing.
Well, yeah. I did used to see him around Woburn Golf Club a bit.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming along, Addy. Thanks, Steve.
Addy.
Great chat as usual. Next week we'll have more guests. Might resurrect the game next week as well.
Yeah.
So
I know what you're on about.
We have a little bit of a game where people come on, play, and try and win some ergonomic equipment.
Brilliant!
Right, so do go and tell your friends at university if they'd like to win some backer kit.
Get on the show and beat me.
All they have to do is literally they come in and they play with their smartphones.
Is it trivia?
It is trivia, yeah.
Oh, I love a bit of trivia.
It's trivial. I don't know about trivia.
No, well, it is trivia though, isn't it? It's it's generally questions about things on the back of website.
And then some random
and we
bands
have
that Graham saw in 1984 in wherever, so it just gets thrown in.
I reckon I could win the bits of trivia on Graham stuff. I'm not
sure exactly. But we very soon we'll have some exciting news to tell people as well, won't we? But we're keeping that to ourselves for the minute. Thanks for coming along, everybody.
No problem.
We'll see you again next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Bye for now.
next week.
Bye for now.
Bye.